This is important stuff
for you to know.
Welcome to the show. This is Tony.
And this is Javier.
This is the show where we talk about what we believe may be important stuff.
But in the end, it's for you to decide.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Javier, today, or this week, actually, over the last several days, I've been going through our Twitter following and just looking at some of the business activity, business articles and such. I've been seeing a lot of a concept coming up. Ideation. Ideation. I really wasn't clear on ideation. I can assume what it is, but when I investigated it, I found a concept of ideation and creativity. Ideation and creativity. Let's talk a little bit about it, because as I investigated it, I learned a lot about some of the concepts that we have been discussing. How do you see it? Ideation.
Well, obviously, it's a very popular topic. There's a lot of hype in the media these days about creativity and ideation, especially when you look at technology and in the internet and internet companies, you know, the Facebooks, the Amazons, Twitter, and so on, LinkedIn, and all. There's a lot of talk about it because there is a lot of activity taking place these days. People coming up with new ideas, innovating, which is innovating and ideation. I perceive them to be different, and an idea is something that is completely new.
So what is ideation?
Ideation is just the generation. I know this is redundant, but it's the generation of ideas. We are, and actually, of course, it's a product of a byproduct of creativity. A creative person is a person who's generating ideas about everything. It could be art, it could be music, it could be business products, solutions, software, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
Building, architecture.
Is there a way to classify ideation? There's new ideas. It's a new idea. Is there a way to classify? Does everything have to be new and original?
Well, originality, it's very difficult these days with advances in technology to say that something is 100% new. It's normally, it may be based on something that already existed. It could be the raw materials to which it's made. Maybe it's based on some software, but you create something completely new using this software, this application. It's something that is new, and I don't know if there's really a classification of ideation. Some people talk about disruptive ideation or disruptive innovation, which actually what it does is to change completely change a paradigm, an existing paradigm about anything.
Do you have any examples?
Yes. Well, for example, the recorder. We're using a laptop. Now we're using the laptops to record. In the past, we were using just a tape recorder. Mm-hmm. That was an idea. It was a change to have tape recorders that could be handheld by people, and anybody could have a tape recorder on his hand. Eventually, somebody said, well, now we can do it electronically. Now we have a digital. And somebody said, well, why don't we just put it, since we have electronics in a laptop or in a computer, why don't we incorporate a microphone and a software to record? Mm-hmm. So this is how it's evolving. Somebody said initially, let's record voice or let's record music. Music many years ago was played live. There was no recording.
Right.
And somebody said, well, why don't we record this beautiful music? And eventually we ended up with the first recorders. So that was disruptive at the time. To listen to music, you had to go to listening to it live. And eventually the music was moved into your house, into the bedrooms, into the living rooms, because of the recording and because of radio. They had live music and radio, and eventually they could just tape the concert or the song and put it on the radio. So that's changed the paradigm. TV was another example, and if you go around, if you look around where you are now at this moment, you will see that a lot of the things that we take now for granted, at one point in time, were disruptive. They changed completely paradigms. Transportation is one of them.
So disruptive creativity, would it, if I'm understanding it correctly, when Apple came up with the mouse on the computer, before that it was a lot of programming and entry, and Apple came up with the link of the mouse to make it user-friendly. Is that disruptive?
Instead of using the up and down keys on left and right, yes.
Is that an example of disruptive?
Yes, but of course there are dimensions. There are dimensions about how disruptive it is in the specific market.
It changes.
It changes.
It radically changes the way
something is about
done.
Change. It brings about a significant change in how you can solve a problem, how you can satisfy a demand, a market demand. How can people access your products? So there's a lot of things that change every time a new idea is brought to the market.
Okay, to the market. Okay, now that brings me. Well, first let me just back up 1 second. So everything doesn't have to be disruptive creativity.
No.
If I look at something that's already developed and used every day, but I have a better way by adding to it or making a change to it. Is that possible? Is that creativity?
Oh yeah, it's creativity because you have created something that didn't exist before, or you improved it, you made it different. But that's creativity. But what you're saying now, when you improve on something, it's innovation.
Okay.
So this is how I perceive the difference between ideation and innovation. People tend to confuse the terms, and actually, even up to these days, innovation is used more like a generic term of the process of creating and generating ideas and implementing them.
Brings us to a point. Socially, I hear a lot of just casual comments. People will say, "Yes, but I'm not a very creative person. I'm not very creative. I've never been creative." That probably is not necessarily true. How does an individual use this concept of ideation and creativity? Is there a simple way that they can incorporate this into their own use?
Thankfully, the answer is yes.
Okay, I had a feeling that was the answer.
Of course, many people or some people are born creative. There's something in their genes, on the genetic code, the DNA, that for them, being creative, imagining new things, comes very easy. But it doesn't mean that it's only those people, the ones that are capable of generating ideas or innovating. Anybody can do it. I read recently that a normal person during the day has 70,000 thoughts.
All creative ideas?
No, thoughts. You in your mind, in your brain, during the day, 70,000 thoughts go through. You process 70,000 thoughts.
You think about what you're going to eat.
I'm going to walk. Where am I going? What should I read? I have to go to the bank. I have to write an email to my son. Whatever. Those, they number 70,000.
Okay.
Okay. Now, I guarantee you that today you had at least one or probably more ideas about something. Because something that is troubling you, something that is bothering you, something that you need, and you cannot get it now with what you have, and you say, how can I do this different? Why don't people do this different? For example, I'll give you one great example. People going to the bank to cash a check or to deposit a check, they will have to wait in line in the old days, wait in line 20 minutes, half an hour, until it was their turn. And somebody said, why do people have to come to the bank to do their banking? Right?
Right.
Somebody said, well, why don't we move the bank outside? Oh, that's impossible. You mean we're going to work outside? No.
Can't put bankers outside on the street.
No. Let's put a cash machine, an ATM outside. And that simplified so much and prevented the pain to the customers of having to wait 20 minutes, half an hour to cash a $20 check. Okay, so this is something that somebody said, why not? And those are the questions that if you ask yourself constantly, why not do this different? What if we do this way? You become you start to develop an attitude.
Ah,
You
okay.
become creative about anything. And I guarantee you, Tony, again, that during the day, you had a few ideas that came to you on inspiration,
Yes.
by instinct, but then you did not follow up on the idea, and they died. They stayed in your brain, they became stale, and eventually they just disappear. And they brought no benefit to you, to your family, or to society.
So, creativity ideology is coming up with it can be a very simple solution to a problem or a method, changing a different way to approach something. All right, let's help the people that are out there listening today. They come up with an idea. As you say, they have these 70,000 thoughts during the day, and in that they isolate an idea. Why not? Why can't we do this? So they have an idea. What do they do first?
Well, the first thing is to write it down, record it somehow. If you have you can record it on your iPhone, on your smartphone. You can record it on your iPad, on your laptop. You can write it on paper and write everything that comes to your mind that has to do with the idea, shape, what is it made of, what purpose it's going to serve, who's going to buy it, where are they going to buy it, how much it should cost, size, color, whatever. You write it down. You put it on a piece of paper.
Okay.
And that guarantees that it's not going to die by the time you go to bed.
Keeps the idea in front of you.
It keeps the idea. Now, and anybody can do that.
Yes. Yes.
The next step, the ideal next step would be to visualize your idea. Because this idea, for it to reach the marketplace, to satisfy a need or solve a problem, it has to be communicated to somebody. You have to communicate it to the people who are going to make it for you. You're going to have to communicate it to the people who are going to buy it. You're going to communicate it to the investors eventually if you're going to need money, or to the banks. So you have to be able to tell a good story.
Okay. So a lot of people might say, okay, I have this idea, I think, but I'm not sure. Has it ever been tried? Has it ever been done? They sketch it out. They write it down. They sketch it out. They visualize it. Where do they go from there? Or even to back up a little bit in creating the steps.
I think that's a good suggestion to go back a little bit. I told you that you're thinking constantly. You can develop that attitude to constantly be questioning things. Why not do this differently? What if I do this way, or whatever? But you have triggers that can help you in that. For example, there's a lot of books. There are a lot of even toys. There are cards who suggest to you to think out of the box, to think differently. You can have even on your agenda, those agendas that have some thoughts.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Some of them can trigger you to think differently, to think about an idea. It could be a word. It could be by analogy. It could be a metaphor. Anything that can induce you to think creatively.
Okay.
And come up with an idea. And I give you an example. For example, the pencil. Remember the old pencil. It was old wood and to write.
Yes.
It didn't have an eraser. People would have an eraser next to the pencil.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody, and I don't know who it was, and probably was not a genius. Mm-hmm. It was just a practical person with a practical mind. They said, well, why do we have to carry a pencil in one hand and the eraser in the other one? Why don't we put the eraser on the pencil, on one side?
Okay.
So now that's why pencils today, the majority of pencils have the eraser in the back.
Innovation.
Yes. See, but somebody, I guarantee you that it was not a scientist.
Yes, they came up with that in a laboratory.
No, and if you look around, so that happens. So something is good. Like I said, there's a lot of tools. There are cards, there are books, there are flashcards, there are applications. There are many applications on the internet and in the iPhones and smartphones and tablets.
Yes.
Who can trigger
yes.
that creative attitude.
So we have a lot of people that I'm sure, come up with ideas. They may even write it down. They may talk to their family about it. And they say, wow, that is a great idea. And maybe they don't draw a storyboard on it to visualize it. That's a great suggestion. That would be step 2. First, come up with the idea. Step 2, you visualize it. And it's a great idea. You think it'll go. You think it can sell. Where do you go next?
Well,
what's the next step?
It all depends on what's the idea about. Let's suppose that you're talking about an ashtray.
Okay.
I'm just making it up. An ashtray where you put out your cigarette, but also it has a...
something out on a patio that sits on a table outside, but it emits a smoke and a smell that a lot of people don't like.
Okay, but this ashtray has a device. It's an electric device or works with batteries that can generate some kind of perfume to neutralize the bad odor of the nicotine. Okay, but also maybe now I'm thinking it could also have some insect repellent, mosquito repellent. You can. You can add other things. So let's say it's about the size of a cup. Okay, and you say, well, maybe this is the sort of the shape that it should have, and maybe it should be made of pewter or maybe of ceramic.
How do you build it then? How do you build it?
No, in the old days, you would have to go and find a graphic designer, somebody who do a blueprint. The right dimensions and how they go, and have some kind of eventually it was doing tridimensionally. You could actually see that. But you had to send it to somebody to go to a factory and present the blueprint to the factory and tell them, I want you to make this prototype. And that would cost money and it would take time. And maybe, and normally most of the entrepreneurs don't have the money to do that. Thanks to technology, today you have something that is called the 3D printer. 3D printers, although the name is, they're called printers, they're not actually like a regular printer, paper printer or ink printer. It generates the object in plastic, for example. It works like
layers.
By layers. Okay, it takes that blueprint and it sends a signal to this 3D printer, and the printer is laying layers on top of layers until it builds the prototype. These printers today, you can get them for less than $1,000. You can actually have one at home, and I could build with plastic my prototype.
What if you didn't want to buy one? I'm sure there are places you can go and
probably
pay a fee, and someone will do it.
Your first resource these days for anything that you do is the internet. You do a Google search, and you're going to find out that near where you live, there will be some company that has 3D printers, and you just come in with your blueprint. It's probably being done with CAD, computer-aided design software, and you give it to them. You bring in the DVD, the CD, and you give it to them. They put it in the system, and they say, come back tomorrow, and tomorrow you go in and you have your ashtray.
Wow.
Made of plastic.
You have your idea, you have your visualized storyboard, you have your prototype now. Now where do you go? We're not marketing geniuses. Not all of us. Where do we go? We need help.
Okay, but this is something that we really have to be aware and concerned about. Very often, creative people who come up with these ideas, they do it on their own, and they're very jealous about not sharing this idea with somebody because they may steal the idea. Okay, so they're very secretive in the way they work. But they're so secretive, they don't even talk to the potential customer. So they're building something that they don't know if the customer is going to buy it.
That's secretive.
And that normally, that has happened a lot in the past. With the engineering mind, I can create anything in a machine shop. They create something, and eventually the market doesn't have a need for that. The market doesn't like that. There's no pain to satisfy with this product, and this person wasted money and time on something that the market is not going to buy. So you have to communicate at one point in time with the marketplace to the potential customers.
How do you do that? How do you communicate?
Many ways. In the old days, you would have to hire a marketing company, a marketing advisor, and they would do pilot tests, and they would bring in people to and show them the product and what do you think? What about the shape? What about the material? What about the colors? On and on. And then they would write down and they would give you a report. Well, the market likes it, or the market doesn't like it. These days, you can do it yourself without the help of anybody. I'm not saying that you should always do it alone. If you can afford it, it's better to have an expert help you. But you can do it on the internet. You can do a survey for free, practically. You can use SurveyMonkey. You can write your own questionnaire, your own survey, put it on the web. People will look at it. They will respond. They will make comments. And based on that, you can make a decision. Well, they do need a product to satisfy this need. And so there may be a market for this. And then you can actually go on the streets and stop people and have people look at the product. One day we were talking about, for example, Costco, where you do the tasting for chili, for soup, and you see these ladies with little tables.
Yeah, different foods that you're sampling.
Well, they're testing to see if the product flies, if the people like the product. So there are many ways to do it. You go to the shows. You can go to the trade shows and go in with your prototype and sit you have a little table, where you have a couple of your prototypes and have people try them and look at them and you talk to them. Maybe you have a video that, by the way, you can produce these days yourself for
right
nothing.
Online, sure.
You can do it your own for nothing. So the bottom line is that I don't want to scare people to say, wow, this process is too complicated. It's a lot simpler than you think. And it costs practically nothing to bring some products to the market.
That's a great point, because a lot of people have ideas. They're very creative, and they don't know where to go, and they assume, I don't have the money to get it started. So with the technology, they can do so much on their own. This is a low-budget presentation and development of your idea. Okay, now you studied the market. Step 5 we're into. Where do we go from there? We need money to try to produce this and develop this.
I'm surprised that you haven't mentioned something that people will tell this person, let's say inventor or entrepreneur.
Yes.
From the start, they tell them you got to do a business plan. You have to write up a business plan, and the business plan has its purpose. Not so much these days to convince investors to invest in your company. I think the use of business plans today is more to benefit the people who are going to be managing the project or the company. When
you use the term business plan to me, and maybe to the average person, it sounds like I need a financial background to present a very complicated presentation of a business plan. Is there a better way?
There's an alternative. I don't know if it's better or not. It all depends how much money you have. But I'm under the assumption that we're talking to people like us. I mean, we don't have deep pockets that we can go and hire everybody to do what we want for us. I'm just saying that people can do it on their own. Okay, so business plan, you can hire a business consultant who writes up business plans for you, and you give it some information, and they plug that into Excel spreadsheet, and blah blah blah. They do the numbers, the revenue, expenses, the administrative expenses, blah 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 blah, the taxes and so on, and they give you a number. This is how much we're going to make in the first 5 years. If you do a financial calculation, you bring it down to present value. My company, given these numbers in the future, my company today is worth $2 million, 5, 10, whatever. But you can also do it yourself. You can go on the web. And there are so many templates, formats that you can get for free, to download for free, to do a business plan. You can do it yourself. Again, the only cost is going to be the electricity for using the computer. Practically zero. You want to invest some money, you go and buy, for example, one that I like and I've been using for years. It's called the one-page business plan. I don't know how much it's worth today, but probably it's less than $20. You do a business plan in one page. And
I like that idea.
They take you by the hand and they tell you how to do everything. Now, you also have applications, and I go back to applications because for me these are fascinating tools that we have available these days. There are applications for handheld, phones, smartphones, for iPads, for computers that help you to build your business plan. So you have a business plan. So now you can go and talk to the investors. But we skipped one step because we went directly to the business plan.
Mm-hmm.
Before you can do a business plan, you have to do a business model. This is something that some people didn't do before.
What's the difference?
Well, to do a business plan, for you to calculate the revenue and the expenses, you have to know what I'm going to sell, how many units, to whom, where, how are they going to pay me.
And this is your business model.
You do a business
strategy.
Model. And it's actually a diagram. It's an image where you have your company, your factory, how you're going to distribute. Are you going to sell directly or through distributors? Okay, these distributors are going to sell to whom? To the final to the consumer or to a retailer, on and on. You do that and you have lines that show who is going to buy, who's going to pay you, how you're going to get paid. So you do the business model, and based on that business model, then you do the business plan, the financial model and the business plan.
When you have your business plan completed, and you can use a PowerPoint presentation, because you need a presentation if you're going to go find investors, mm-hmm. and whether you talk to a bank or investors, at some point you do have to present this idea, this concept to someone, and you can't be so protective and secretive, or it will never get off the ground. I would much rather have a percentage of a successful idea than 100% of an idea that sits in my bottom drawer of my desk. So what advice do you have for a presentation for a person now? They have their business plan, and do they walk into a bank? Do they look for investors?
Well, I mean, probably this would be a topic for another show. But what I tell investors from the days that we started doing PowerPoint presentations, people focus more on the presentation itself and none of the content. So we had these very artistic presentations with lots of images, lots of color. They would put in music, and the words would come in and out, and so on. Too much action on the slides. People these days want to be practical. They don't want you to make a 60-slide presentation. Probably, at the most, I would say 20, and to me 20 is too much. Mm-hmm. Don't put too much text. And don't read the slide, because people are reading the slide, so you don't have to repeat it.
Visualization sounds important.
Right.
Here.
So the presentation, again, we go back to storytelling. You have to tell your story with just a few slides. And it has to be a very compelling story, a very convincing story. Now, we went from talking about ideation and creativity, and we ended up with setting up a company and so on. But people, these days, that's what they're talking about. How did Zuckerberg come up with the idea for Facebook? Mm-hmm. How did Bezos come up with Amazon? And on and on. You have Steve Jobs with Apple, on and on.
Right.
They just, something came up in their mind. They realized there was a need for this. Why do we have to buy huge computers if we can have computers in our desks? How we can do that? And well, he's found Steve Wozniak, and who was the person who knew about computers. They teamed up, yes. Which is what I'm trying to suggest now.
Yes.
If you think alone about your idea, and you try to take your idea from point A to Z at the end, and you don't share with somebody, you're missing out on recommendations, on people building up on your idea and telling you, why don't you do this? Why don't you change this? Maybe it would make it a more marketable product. So you have to open up your idea to people so that people can share on that. Don't be afraid that people are going to steal your idea.
Javier, a thought comes to my mind each time you mentioned ideas and creativity. We did a show not too long ago on retirement, and we talked about, is retirement the end or the beginning? We really have a tremendous resource out there with these baby boomers, which we both are in that category, of a lifetime of ideas and resources and experience. This is really a concept, ideology and creativity, that is available or exists for many, many retirees. A blue-collar worker from a factory, to engineers, to scientists, mathematicians, medical people. This is a concept that really can be implemented and utilized by many of these retirees to develop a new direction in life.
Well, to me, I mean, you know how much I hate the word retirement. I think we already did a show on that. I see when people put stages in life and they say, okay, this is the end of adolescence, okay, oh, this is the end of childhood, this is adolescence, and so on. I think it's a big mistake. I wish I could say that childhood, it stays with me until the day I die.
Mm-hmm.
And we lose, children are very creative. They make up things, they think they're Superman because they put a towel on, and they're so creative about many things, about the way they play, the toys that they make themselves, things that they do. But somehow along the line, and there are many people researching about this, when do we start curtailing creativity on children? When? And that happens in school, and you know about this. If you say, I'm a child until I am, 12, 10, 14, and then I'm an adolescent, and then I'm a mature person, and then I'm a senior citizen, and now I'm ready to retirement. I hate to put those stages. Well, I think it should be just one, and you're evolving, and you're getting better and better and better and better and better. But when you put dates, and you put, beginning and ends, I think your whole frame of mind, once you say retirement, I feel that you're retiring from life, and you're just waiting for the end, and you don't start thinking about the future. You do not think about another change in your life, another opportunity. Actually, when you reach a certain age, and that hopefully you have enough money, think about making another change, going back to school, doing something different, start your own company. We need people to do that.
Yes, creativity. Creativity needs to be there. Probably you are conditioned throughout your life, and you lose that imagination, that creativity, that play of children, because you run across so many people.
You shouldn't do that.
They beat you down. You can reignite this creativity, and it starts with an idea. And hopefully we gave a lot of good suggestions today to our audience. That
if I can finish one thought. These days, if you talk about people in technology, they're using gaming for just about everything. When they think about training, when they think about developing new software, they think about the interaction of the user and the system or the software, and it's all about gaming. How do we keep people engaged? That's why when you see a gaming company going to the market, they get bought up immediately for millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, because that's why we enjoy doing things. When we think that we're in a game, it means fun.
Yes.
So if you can teach people to do things in a gaming environment, okay, the interaction with the computer, it's like a game. These people are going to learn more. I guarantee you.
Fantastic. Good discussion. We're going to wrap it up here. I hope we have provided a framework to help with those creative ideas and a plan from step one right through the marketplace and the funding and the sharing. So if you have any questions from the listeners out there, please contact us. Leave a message on our show. Send us an email. Raise your questions.
We'd love to hear from them, yes.
And we'll put it live on the air. We'll address your question. We really appreciate them all. Right now, we need to pause for a break, and we'll be right back after a short pause. Welcome back, everybody. Okay, we're going to end out the show with a segment on Q&A, a little question response that we got in from listeners. We always say we're going to take those questions live on air. So let me throw one out to you. This is following our show on retirement that we did. It comes in from Doug in Connecticut. His question is, don't you think that retirement is a time to relax and enjoy the fruits of your labor? Javier, why don't you go ahead and field that one?
Oh, Doug, thank you for your question. Well, I would comment the following. Who says that while you work you cannot relax? The second question would be, who says that when you are retired, all you do is having a good life, relaxing? Actually, for example, when you're retired and you're spending the money that you have and you're not working, you're not generating any more income, you begin to worry if the money is going to last you till you pass away. So you're not completely relaxed during retirement because you have these worries. And I would say that if you were able to work and you don't have to work full time, you don't have to commute, you can do it from home because there's so many advances now in technology that you can work out of your house. I would encourage you to do both. You can enjoy part of your retirement, but you can also go back into productive life. So I think that was the message that we're trying to send. And the second one is that by working, you can still have time to enjoy life, and you can make more money, and you will not be worrying about if the money is going to last you.
Good job. I think that sums it up pretty well. And you want to?
Yeah. Well, now I throw you another one. We got this from Pat in Arizona, and she was talking about our show on taxation. And Pat is asking us that she has the impression that we were against taxation, and she says, well, if there's no taxation, where will the government get its money?
Okay, first place, we're not against taxation. We were explaining the system and the history of taxes and how taxes can actually get out of control when it's in someone else's hands. And I think that's obvious with some of the activity and criticism recently that's been on the air about the IRS and the need for tax reform, because it creates more problems than it's actually solving. Where will the government get its money? Well, we are the government, Pat. We've always been the government. We only allow the government to utilize the money that we send to it to provide services back that we approve through our government. So the government is not a corporation that makes investments and earns money and gets a return. The government is the steward of the money, taxes that we choose to send. Also, my point on taxation was personal income tax, because I believe that it's not fair to penalize success. I think there ought to be a more liberal tax, a fair tax, maybe a tax on services that are consumed. We're a country of consumerism. So the more you consume, the more taxes that you pay. The less you consume, the less taxes. Gives you personal choices. So I think that pretty well sums it up. Pat, can't thank you enough. And Doug.
Thank you, Doug, and thank you, Pat.
For the question, keep them coming. When you have an opportunity, send it off to our Tumblr feed, Twitter feed. You can leave a message right on the show page. So, Javier, anything to add to it?
No, we just like to, we love to hear from our listeners, and as long as they think that this is important stuff.
Then it is. If they think it is.
Yes.
Thank you very much, and we'll break right here. Thanks for listening, folks. Well, Javier, we've come to the end of the show.
We certainly had a good time, and we hope our listeners did too.
Maybe along the way, someone even learned something.
And remember, if you think something is
important stuff,
let us know, and we will talk about it.
So, until next time, hasta la vista.